no education. Boom, ba-dum, boom, boom. Boom, ba-dum, boom, boom, boom. We don't need no thought control. Impeccable timing, partner. Come on in, sit down. I was just thinking about the last conversation that we had about creativity. So if you recall, I did my very darndest last time to convince you that you are in fact creative even if you don't feel like it. Because it's just something that the brain does. And if I was successful, you might be thinking, okay, Mr. Roybert, you have spent a long time talking about what creativity is not. Now, would you please just tell me what incarnation is it? And to be perfectly honest, I'm still working on it. What I can tell you is that I've collected a few insights, and I think with your help, maybe we can put them together like pieces of a puzzle and come up with a new and useful solution to this question. Okay, don't hate me for saying this, but I think our best option is to go back to school.
Oh, come on. Stop whining. You kids are soft. You lack discipline. But I've got news for you. You're mine now. You belong to me.
I know this doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun, but I promise you it'll be worth your time. For starters, we get to go back to school shopping. Why don't we make a list? Throw some ideas out at me, partner. What do we need to go back to school? A backpack? Okay. Number 2, pencils, of course. A trapper keeper. That's old school, partner. I'm so into it. A ruler? Okay. We are growing boys and girls. Maybe we should get some new clothes. And some new shoes as well. A protractor? Nerd. And how about a lunchbox? This is gonna break the bank. Are you sure we need all of these? I have a backpack and a trapper keeper. I can reuse those. And even though my protractor is broken, you can still use it to a certain degree. And as much as I would love to sport a new lunchbox this year, I think I'm gonna have to stick with thunder. Thunder. Thunder.
ThunderCats!
There's something inside. Well, what do you know? It's all the items on our shopping list. And, winner, winner, save that for later. To solve this mystery, we're gonna have to think outside of the box. So let's take out each one of these items on our list and think about what it could possibly have to do with creativity. Let us start from the beginning. In any academic approach, it's good to start off by defining terms. So how do we define creativity? Dictionary.com. Obviously, partner. Check it out. Creativity. The ability to transcend traditional ideas, rules, patterns, relationships, or the like, and to create meaningful new ideas, forms, methods, interpretations, etc. Originality, progressiveness, or imagination. So did that all make sense to you? Well, luckily we have another resource. Psychologists seem to have a more focused definition, and they generally agree that it's something like the following. The ability to generate solutions that are both novel and useful. Okay, so this is an amazing start because now we have these two features, novelty and usefulness. And we can go and try to identify creativity like we're looking for an exotic bird. So let's take a look at our back-to-school shopping list. Are any of those things we wrote down creative solutions to the problem, what do I need to be successful at school? Well, clearly they're all extremely useful. And if this was an episode of Family Feud, we would have won big because this is what everybody writes down.
Pencil.
Pencil.
But because of that, it's not novel at all. Okay, but this is coming from the mind of us adults. Let's think like a child. What would you have put on that list when you were 5 years old? If it was me, it would be like a Spider-Man mask, an ice cream sandwich, some gack, and a jar of worms or something.
I got worms.
I beg your pardon?
Is this interesting? This list is filled with novelty, but are any of these items useful? So I guess this kind of brings me to my first insight, and that is creativity seems to be about problem solving. It's a process, and that kids and adults have different approaches. Okay, what do these two shirts have to do with the problem-solving process, you ask? Well, let me tell you a story. And this is about me going back to school, because I used to love going back to school shopping. And t-shirts were my jam, partner, because that's where all the action was. You know, you'd have sharks and dinosaurs, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and ThunderCats, and Hypercolor, right? 3 different options. Throw all of that into the basket. At some point, my mom would come up to me and say, "Listen, mister, I am not made out of money. You can choose exactly 5 of these shirts. Now get your butt into the fitting room and try them on." And this was the challenging part for me because, yeah, some things wouldn't fit or they would look bad and you could eliminate those easy, but how are you supposed to decide what is best? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or ThunderCats? Let me know in the comments what you think. Okay, now imagine that you are a psychologist sitting in an armchair in the corner of the store, taking notes and silently judging me, watching my every move. You would notice that you could divide this whole process into 2 parts. The first part, where I am going around putting different shirts into the shopping cart, you would call divergent thinking. And it's all about imagination and discovering novel options. And you would call the second part, where I am in the fitting room trying those clothes on, convergent thinking. And that's all about testing and analysis and eliminating all but the most useful options. You know what? Let's do ourselves a favor. Since these are brand new terms, let's recruit our motor cortex to aid in the learning process. So put your hands out in front of you and repeat after me. Divergent, convergent, divergent, convergent, divergent, convergent. Great. It's important to realize that this process can go back and forth indefinitely, right? Until you find a solution. So if Ross doesn't have a good selection, well, you can always go to the gap.
Cal, be better than the gap. Be better than the gap. Say it.
I'm better than the gap.
Do you see what's going on here? Is this amazing? Because this sort of maps onto the 2 qualities, the 2 features that we were looking for in our creative solutions, right? You need both novelty and usefulness. And now we have these 2 different ways of thinking that produce those 2 features.
No way! Yes way, Ted. We're fully programmed to do it.
Are you thinking to yourself, this doesn't really feel that creative to me? Society has given us all of the options that we generated. To be truly novel, we should do something crazy. Maybe we could go over to the girls section, right? None of the other boys are doing that. Or we could go to the adults section with a pair of scissors and some finger paints. Okay, so I suppose my second insight is that the problem-solving process has these 2 parts, and they're both equally necessary, but the second is constrained by the first. I mean, you can't try on any clothes before you've picked them out and put them in the basket. And psychologists have found that they can predict creative potential by measuring people's ability at divergent thinking. How does one measure divergent thinking, you ask? With the divergent thinking task. Naturally. So this is like a fun little game you can play with someone, right? What you do is you grab an ordinary object, like this teacup, for example, and you drink your tea. And then you say to them, how many different uses can you think of for this object? Write them all down. And the trick is that you don't get any points for the uses that other people come up with. Just the original ones. What can you do with a teacup? Well, you could drink tea with it, obviously. But it doesn't have to be tea, right? You could drink soda, OJ, the purple stuff, Sunny D. But that's not going to get us any points. We need to think outside of the box. Does it have to be a liquid? Well, no, I could eat cereal out of this. Or I could crack an egg and cook it in the microwave. But we're still thinking about containing and then consuming. What if we think about like containing and transferring? Well, I could bail out water from my fish tank or from a sinking ship. We're still thinking about it in terms of this orientation. What if we turn it over? Well, then we could catch a bug or spider, right? Well, it's got this circular rim. Maybe we could put it on some paper and trace a circle. Or we could turn it sideways and use it to roll out some Play-Doh into the shape of a ruler. God, this is hard. What else do you do with it? Use it for protection? Or fashion? Okay, well, you get the idea. If you think of anything really great, write it down in the comments section for me, would you?
Your results were inconclusive.
That's impossible. It doesn't make any sense.
Not impossible. It's just extremely rare. They call it Divergent.
So what did we learn when we reflect on what we've done? Well, it seems like all of the first things that come to mind are just the obvious answers, the low-hanging fruit. And the further away we get from that prototypical use case, the harder and harder it is and the more energy it takes to reach those solutions at the top of the tree. Would you care to guess who does really, really well at this type of test? Artists and the insane? Yeah, they probably do okay. But there's a better answer. You, when you were 5 years old. Check it out. According to one study, 98% of 5-year-olds do extremely well when given a similar type of test. And what's disturbing is that when you retest them later in life, they do worse and worse and worse until you reach us adults, where only 2% of us can score as well as we did when we were 5. So keep that in the back of your mind. My third insight is that creativity requires a good deal of time and energy invested in this divergent thinking process. And the people that do that best are kids. Why don't you put on your new shoes, partner, and let's go down to the playground. So did that divergent thinking task feel kind of like a game? A little bit playful, dare I say even fun? Well, now that we're on the playground here, I'd like to make a trivial observation. You never see any adults on the playground equipment. Let me clarify. You never see any sober adults on the playground equipment. Why not? Mr. Roybert, everybody knows that kids play and adults work. And adults see play as a waste of time and energy. Well, maybe, but maybe we forget what the point of play really is. And here's what Mr. Rogers had to say about it. Play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning. But for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood. What does a child see when they look out across the playground? Swings? A slide? A seesaw? Well, those words are just labels on the boxes that we adults like to put things in to simplify the world. Kids have this uncanny ability to see things not as they are, but as they could be.
Aha! How are you doing that?
Oh, that's easy. All you need is a box.
And imagination.
Why are kids so much better at divergent thinking? Ignorance. Sheer ignorance. They just don't know any better. After all, when you don't know what something is supposed to be, it could be anything. When you don't have any solutions, you're forced to play around and use your imagination to generate them. And even a box is so much more than that to a child. I don't want to scare you, but I feel like we might be undervaluing this activity. Just listen to the way that we talk. What are you doing, partner? We don't need to reinvent the wheel. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. After all, time is money, so quit playing around and get back to work. Maybe we adults don't play like we used to because we just don't need to. After all, necessity is the mother of invention, and we've already collected all of these solutions that we carry around with us like tools in a tool belt. And for any new problem we encounter, we reach into our tool belt and select the right tool for the job. aka convergent thinking. And I grant you, that is probably the most efficient, most practical, most logical thing that we could do in most situations. But you have to wonder, can a fixation on practicality ever become pathological? Okay, so I guess my fourth insight is that play seems to be the activity that accompanies divergent thinking. And for whatever reason, we adults no longer seem to really value it as a tool for learning. Okay, how do we put all of this together? Well, let's play around. So maybe we put this here, and then, yeah, and then, oh, yes, yes, I like it. Partner, it's a seesaw. It's a seesaw in our minds, right? And the two children riding on either side represent these two complementary thought processes that go back and forth, generating solutions. And maybe what the creative thinking process entails is just using this apparatus for long enough, investing enough time and energy for it to generate a solution that no one has ever come to before. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Is this practical? Can this knowledge empower us to be more creative? Because now we know where the problem is. We have abandoned this child inside of us, this 5-year-old whose only wish is to play on that seesaw, but can't because we see it as a waste of time and energy. And although we can't think with the brain of a child anymore, we still have our imagination. And we can use it when we get stuck on a problem to imagine seeing it through the eyes of a child and then asking ourselves, what assumptions are we making that that child would not? To reclaim our creative potential, partner, we need to start thinking like both children and adults. And that's not impossible. We just need to take turns. Because creativity is a balancing act. And that's only a creative way to look at it if it's useful to you. And if it is, please, please let me know. And share this video because this took a lot of time and energy. And now that we know we need to diverge and create all of these new ideas, doesn't that make you wonder, where do new ideas even come from? Find out next time on The Joy of Thinking. And I'll see you then, partner. Bye-bye.